Hey there, welcome to episode 87 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 3:18 p.m. on Thursday, July 24th, 2025. The topic and title of today's episode, Civics. If you don't know what that means, if you don't remember, we are going to talk about that. If you are not familiar with, maybe this is your first time listening to an FFS Talk audio program. This is a program about discussion, maybe even debate, certainly conversation about what works, what does not work, and what we might do about it. I will suggest that is a normative description. Thus far, there have been no guests. I will say that I have not done a great job. I have not been particularly proactive about obtaining guests, about booking discussion partners. I talk to myself a lot, may as well record it. But seriously, the library of episodes has been growing weekly, is essentially a starting point for discussions into the future. So initially I thought it might be a good idea to have kind of some momentum, some starting points where one might say, oh, I am interested in that topic, I disagree, or I have a better idea, or something along those lines. And that still may happen. It may well happen. The exact date when that will happen, however, eludes me. One of these days. In the meantime, we can talk about civics. And if you're wondering, what does FFS mean? Well, perhaps you should hang out with more Irish people. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description. It contains the show notes, which includes a summary and a few links for the show. If you have listened before, I will tell you I'm rejiggering the shameless self-promotion links. So today there are 3, and then there's one link to Wikipedia for civics. So let us begin. From sports to driving to preparing food and more, there are so many things we need or want to do each day, which we choose to learn about, understand, and practice on a regular basis. Why have we made that one big thing that we all use continuously in one way or another such a mystery? Civics. Today's links, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo and the Buy Me an Update audio program published on Mondays. A quick rundown on the previous week's audio program topics and news and announcements upcoming at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts, formerly published exclusively on buymeacoffee.com, but now Buy Me an Update is available also on Spotify with a proper RSS feed. Where could you find that? Well, it's actually published on Spotify so far. It will be making the rounds. I literally just started doing this week. If you visit buymeacoffee.com/danhugo, you will see the profile page contains some biographical information, links to all of my audio productions, including the recently added Buy Me an Update. And from those links, you will be able to find various places, maybe Amazon, maybe Spotify. One of these days I'll do Apple. I'm not an Apple fan, but maybe some are. You'll be able to find where to locate RSS feeds, including not only Buy Me an Update, but Coffee Solo as well. The third link, ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. You will find the Coffee Solo program, which has no particular schedule and no particular topic. It's just whatever comes to mind, and it's probably going to be just me. I'm getting used to that. Hence Coffee Solo. I've talked about things like my ankle injury, which is now about 8 weeks ago, which I'm essentially fully recovered from. I'll give it a 95% so far. 90, 95, somewhere in there. And whatever else. News of the day, who can say? So it's not every day, it's not every week, it's somewhere in there. So you can check that out. And again, a feed is available. If you visit buymeacoffee.com/danhugo, I will be rejiggering the links and what I'm linking to and how you can find them. I'd like to cut down this link section so that it's more about the episode links, not the shameless self-promotion links. Finally, the episode link, Civics, is a Wikipedia link. It will just remind you about the class you probably took in junior high school or high school. So on that note, let us begin so we can end on this Thursday or whenever you're listening. Your government is my government. I don't know if you knew that. One of the fundamental principles of the system of government that is our grand experiment is that the government is alleged to be of the people, by the people, for the people. I know it sounds tired at this point, but it was a big deal back then. An unusual idea at the time and deliberate. If you never have, check out the Federalist Papers, and when you have a moment, look into what sorts of things the drivers of our new form of government at the time were reading. It's fascinating. Jefferson was a big reader, a huge reader. Adams was not quite as much a reader, but they both read a lot. Jefferson read a lot more, I think. He definitely liked to own books, but there, among other things. But there is plenty about their reading habits, and not just those two. I mean, the whole crowd. And all of the so-called founders at the time were familiar with ancient and more recent, at the time, government and philosophy and so on. They were smart, they were educated, and they had done their homework. Obviously, King George was a source of motivation. It was King George III, if I'm not mistaken. But there were many notions and ideas, and the state of affairs of so many people from different places coming together in this so-called New World, with a nod to the people who are already here, of course. Like, oh, you think this is the New World? Yeah, we've been here for a while. Do it yourself, DIY, converting colonies to states and colonial fealty to a federal government. That was just par for the course. But I do have a feeling that there is something to be said for people who basically set out to start a new life and so on. And that momentum probably carried through in a big way to the late 1700s. So a republic, if we can keep it, you hopefully know where that's a reference to, was left to the future. And so we have once again been dealt that hand, and I don't know if we've I don't know how this one's playing out yet. We'll find out. And unlike the alien suit left to Ralph Hinckley in the Greatest American Hero television show, hopefully you've seen that one, our new and wondrous toy came with full documentation, and then some. The question is whether people who use this crazy thing every single day to some degree have ever really read through this stuff, and whether they understand it, or maybe they just stick with what they hear that sounds good and agreeable to them. I have some bad news for you. That's probably the way. Now, we're not talking government nor politics today. This episode is not about specifics, and while we could talk for, we could talk forever about various amendments and laws and states' rights versus federal government overreach and all manner of other current events. We could talk for hours. What we really should be speaking about, and by we, I mean myself and you, my listener now, but I also mean we as a population, as an electorate, and maybe even as a society, is what it is, what is in that instruction manual. Which parts of it have we forgotten, and which parts of it really which parts are really only the beginning of actually paying attention and watching for events and indications that let us know in which direction we are headed. In other words, can you just read it and say, oh, okay, I get it, and you're done? No. Sometimes you actually have to follow the news, follow along, see what's actually happening, and then maybe think, that's not what it said in that book. Hopefully. And by the way, I did read the Federalist Papers. It's actually pretty interesting. And I've read a few books about what the founders were reading. There's a lot of references to ancient history and then events and governments of the time and so on. It's actually quite interesting. Hopefully you took at least one class somewhere between maybe 7th grade and maybe 10th grade called something like Civics or Government, which should have been focused on how the U.S. government was designed to be made up of normal people, not only the wealthy landed aristocracy, for example, nor ruling family legacies, with their participation through representation and elections. My civics class was in the 8th grade. My teacher was Victor Columbi, a veteran of the Vietnam War with a good nature, a great skill at explaining things, and a great skill at? Well, he was a very skilled explainer. How about that? And an honest presentation about everything, including his experiences and opinions about the war that took 2 of his limbs, legs, both. If you do not remember your civics class or what civics even is, Google generated this at the top of the search results when I search for the word civics. You may get something similar, and it is about what I would have said, shying away from any political leanings and focusing on the actual nature of government and thus civics, and looks to be similar to some of the descriptions in relevant websites and so on. So I'll go with what Google AI probably generated, although it probably just took these words verbatim from somewhere. Quote, civics is the study of the rights and duties of citizens encompassing the structure and function of government. Structure and functions, plural, of government, and how citizens can participate in their communities. And community, an overused word that I don't care for in most scenarios. But here, your community could be your neighborhood, your city, your county, your state, your country, your world, your planet. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So communities can be different sizes, and you should pay attention to all of them because you have plenty of time. Civics essentially explores the relationship between individuals and their government and how citizens can be active, responsible members of society. Ooh, that's a lot of work. I will point out, and I will remind you, people often think, oh, I got to keep track of the federal government. They don't always remember that there's a government right down the street that they can interact with much more directly and personally. And I always recommend that people start there. Now might be a good time to avoid interacting with the federal government here in the U.S. So what's working? My opinion. If you have a differing opinion, why aren't you sitting here with me when we can discuss? People vote in elections, somewhat. Turnout could be better. One could argue that the 2026 midterm elections will be hugely telling, since midterm elections are often consequential, but are also often lower in turnout. There could be substantially more attention paid to voter suppression in the form of roll purges, identification requirements, polling place location reductions, and the like. But people do show up in person or mail in a ballot without making voting compulsory. Though that might not be a bad idea. At the moment, your right to vote is also your right to not vote. I'm not out campaigning for compulsory voting laws. That is, you are required to vote, or you pay a fine, or some other penalty. Some places do that. I think Australia does that. But so you have a right to not vote, and I think people should have that right. I mean, really, they should. But there also should be much more of a connection to turnout incentives. I don't mean like I get a prize, but voting is how I implement change that I want to see, and so on. And my point was that there could be more attention paid to those negatives, and I don't think there is. But people do turn out, so that's working. It could work better, but it is sort of working. Some fractions of the population participate in discussion and commentary in online forums and around online media, which is arguably improved since only 2 or 3 decades ago, when most political discussion was in-person town hall situations or on the letters to the editor page of the newspaper and so on, with information flowing largely in one direction most of the time from large media, your famous anchor in the 5 or 6 p.m. news, maybe your local news people, the big major newspapers in wherever you live, and so on, flowing from them to the audience. That's you. So very, very few people had an opportunity to express themselves at scale. More discussion is arguably better. More informed discussion would be actually better, but perhaps that most people are talking is a reasonable milestone. Now, it's not always good talking. Sometimes it's actually proactively bad, but that's how that First Amendment works. And all levels of government appear to be active, with people winning their elections after they've gotten on the ballot and so on, obtaining seats in their city, county, and state governments. Maybe they take staff roles in various parts of local or regional government, or maybe they work with NGOs, non-government organizations that engage with government in their towns and cities and counties and so on. Participation as elected officials or in civil service. Let me fix that. Civil service is a good indication that at least some people are doing the civics. They're actually participating in some way. And that's how the machine works. And machine doesn't have to be negative. It's just a large set of processes and the people that actually make things happen. Unfortunately, a machine often has a negative connotation because it does end up being an unknown, noisy contraption that's turning out who knows what, and what doesn't work, we don't even know. So machine, and that's only the beginning, the tip of the iceberg of what a bad political or government machine could be. So what about the stuff not working? And I will, let me just point out, I'm keeping this episode brief. If there were a counterpart here to have some debate about particular areas of government that do or do not work, we would probably be diving into much more detail. So I'm just keeping it to 3 general things that work, and then in the same order, looking at the parts of those 3 things that actually don't work. And those are my opinions, or they're also sort of popular opinion. I'm not going too far out of what some generally accepted opinions are here. But if you have more to say, I probably do too. So come on down. What's not working? Keeping the same ordering as the previous parts of working. People do vote in elections, but it is not always clear that they know for whom they are voting or on which issues, for which reasons. And that is the implication of, and that the implication of their vote may, on what, I wrote that, and it should be what the implications of their vote may actually be. If you just vote, D all the way down, or R, or whatever. If you have a protest vote, if you vote third party in protest especially, if you vote for some things but leave other things blank, but they really should kind of go together. There's any number of variations on that theme. The so-called bullet ballot, where you vote for one, say, person on a ballot, and you don't vote for anything else. So there's all these variations on a theme, and those are probably ideologically or faction votes, ideologically driven. So I'm just going to vote because the people I hang out with are voting just for that one person. Okay, great. But what does that really mean? And so you're not voting based on your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own belief, perhaps, that your vote will lead to some positive change from your perspective, but just because you want to make a statement or you want to be on the team, or however you want to view it. I know that's a cynical take, but that's me. Today we may call it vibe voting. I'm becoming less of a fan of vibe, which is overused for everything. It's like community, but with a V, where getting the sticker is more important than knowing which decisions are going to have which impacts on which issues. Getting out the vote is often the driving force. Just vote. You just got to vote. Well, I don't know who I'm voting for. That's okay. Go vote. You got to vote. You got to cast a vote. Rather than educating the vote, you should vote, but let me tell you what it will actually mean. I'm not going to do that. I'm just saying that would be nice if there was voter education was more of a factor in getting out the vote. To say that modern issues discussion is politicized and polarized would be the understatement of all understatements. What we find quite easily, so I'm providing no references, only vibes, is online discourse that becomes vitriolic, with factions ganging up on other factions, bad behaviors like so-called doxing and worse. And in the end, we almost always see entire platforms align with particular ideologies. Blue sky on the left, Twitter is on the right. That's just one example, a fairly obvious one. And it's not entirely true, but that's the nature of the way people think, right? You got to have a tribe. You got to line up and fight the other one, whatever it is. The others are bad. We are good. We are correct. They are not, etc. Argument without interpersonal engagement has impact on social behavior and psychological evolution that is still the subject of study and likely will be for quite some time. It may be that these discussions, let me fix that, add an S there. It may be that these discussions reinforce misinformed ideas, or maybe one might get radicalized through continuous crafted messaging, probably by robots and automation at this point. A bit of a minefield out there, and it will only get worse. Only get worse. You can change public opinion through repetitive, convincing argumentation. And as those arguments grow louder and more commonly encountered, which you can do, and you can have, what's the population of the United States is 330 million-ish, give or take. So if I can create 330 million automated robots that will tell you what I want them to tell you at every turn on every platform you encounter, you may start to think, well, everybody's saying that I should vote for this, or everybody says that that's a bad thing. Well, that might work out. Not good, but at least I will have gotten what I wanted. Issue candidacy and political appointments and agenda-driven machinations can be a thing all the way down to even town governance. The town has 19 people in it. Well, how can the three of us make the most money off these people? That's so cynical. Examine your local government staff and engagements with non-government organizations. Does ideology pervade everything? Were ballots filled with teams of candidates that were all going to go in and clean house under whichever party banner they are affiliated with? Did a wave get voted in to implement an agenda that coincides with agenda across the state or the country even, or with other states? Are hires onto staff doing the same? Are they all pursuing a specific agenda? Are they making good decisions, or are they making group decisions? How can normal people keep track of this, or any of the myriad of moving parts in even their local government? It's a lot of stuff to pay attention to. And as was the case with the 2024 election, obviously, I mean, this is still being made a topic of conversation now and then. The so-called price of eggs was the economics of the individual. The stock market is not the economics of the individual. That's the economics of the elite, right? If you are invested in the stock market, and if that is playing an active role, a direct role in your personal finance and your view of the economy, you are probably one of that group. But if you're more concerned about, can I afford to get eggs and bread, you're in an entirely different part of the population. And there are a lot of people in that part of the population. And hey, I do coupons. I look for the fuel points and the discounts and all that stuff. Most people should. I mean, a dime is a dime. But if you are a person, you are concerned with the price of eggs, not with the price of Tesla, right? So we have enough to worry about. We cannot possibly keep track of people who make it their business, make it their livelihood, to play the game, to cover the tracks, to make convincing arguments, to toe the line, to promote the line, to spin, and so on and so on and so on. And that part's not working, because you end up with a or ill-informed population. The electorate will end up making decisions based on vibes instead of real information and how it might impact them. So what next then? What might we do about these things that don't work, and to make the most of the things that do work? And as I said, for example, voting, we could do a lot better with voter turnout and access to voting. So we'll see. We'll see how 2026 goes. But what next? As I mentioned at the top of the episode, we all use some things daily that we actually take the time to understand. If you watch sports, to follow teams, and you take the time to follow teams and players, you know the rules of the game, hopefully, or maybe you don't, but you at least get the idea. You watch for bad calls and so on. If you drive a car, you hopefully know the rules of the road, hopefully. I'm a pedestrian, so if you don't, just let me know where you are. You know when to put fuel in your car if it needs it, or when to plug it in to charge. You might even know how to change a tire on the side of the road, or who to call to come and do that, or how to perform basic maintenance. And in fairness, some cars are really locked down, and they really just want you to call their roadside assistance number. Like, don't even touch anything. We'll do it. And they, what is it? Saab, SAAB, famously put a large tamper-proof cover over their engines. I don't know if they're still doing that, but yeah, they'd rather you just stay in the passenger compartment and don't touch anything. Thank you. Either way, maybe you can change that tire, or maybe you perform basic maintenance. Who knows? You at least know how to turn it on. This mindset would apply to all levels of government. It could. And while most would retort that they only think about government when they are voting, the truth is that they think about the things government does every day. They may not make that connection, and that's the difference. Thus, that connection must be clear all the time. Now, I'm not saying you don't need thought balloons and labels on every single thing, but some form of reminder, some general understanding, an illustration, authoritative references to the connections that are kept current, relying not on that one civics classroom decades ago, but just general knowledge that, and I'm reminded of, and I didn't put it in the cover art. I think I've done this before. I used this in a previous episode of something months ago. The keep your government hands off my Medicaid or something like that. If you don't know, another favorite is, I don't like socialism. I would never elect a socialist candidate and I think it was Joe Biden was the example. And I said, aren't you collecting Social Security? Yeah. Okay. So without understanding these connections, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you must thank your government every morning when you wake up and give thanks before you go to bed, right? That's not at all what I'm suggesting. What I am saying is that understanding, that sound your car makes, that one, it makes a squeaky little thing. When you find out what that is, then you can, okay, next time, now I know what that is. But if you just continue to have no idea and every single thing is a surprise and disappointment, you and everyone around you stops understanding that, wait, remember the whole of the people, by the people. We're supposed to be telling them what to do. We're not supposed to be told what to do. Now, laws and regulations and whatnot. But the whole point of the system of government here is to have people be involved, not be pawns on a chessboard. And if you say, yeah, but we are, I would say, yeah, but it's not supposed to be like that. We have the technology, and we now have a fully digitally entrenched culture. I had to take a little water break there, sorry. The tools on the table today appear to be newspapers and pamphlets of old, converted to pages that are on the web that are designed for clicks and advertisers. I'm so disappointed whenever I visit our local news websites here in Las Vegas, and you scroll down below the fold, and there's a random native advertising, right? They look like other news stories, but they're all paid advertisement. The equivalent of a For You page, hey, TikTok people, or similar, should be able to present a person like me or you with information they can actually use and they're actually interested in, and or that will have some effect on them at some point. We always see the daily weather report in various news, or in the Chiron on a television, or even some YouTube channels. Tomorrow it'll be raining. That's probably interesting to most people. If it said tomorrow the price of eggs will be 28 cents per egg, someone might say, oh, I'm going to hold off buying eggs until they're 23 cents, right? And those pieces of information are available. You just have to go finding them. They make the weather easy to find. Sometimes it's even correct. Why, in a place like Las Vegas, is there not a little level indicator for Lake Mead, which is is an important part of our water supply? I always ask, why do we not get a daily level indicator? Like, it's up 2 inches today. Oh, it's down 4. Right? They just don't do it. You can find that information. It's published online. Good luck, though. You got to go searching for it. So we have the technology to do this. The For You page has been done. So why are we not doing that with information people need to know about the systems that they are a part of and that are a part of their daily lives? Things to watch, things to pay attention to. Obviously, this is a place where the game could be played. Oh, we'll just give him the good news. The bad news will not find its way onto his For You page or her For You page. To skew which pieces of which information are highlighted. So implementing this with trust would be important. I foresee implementing this with modern AI, artificial intelligence, agent technologies. the current trend with MCP, the Model Context Protocol. Suppose rather than somebody on the server side, somebody over at Yahoo News, or I can't even think of any new, Reuters, AP, they're crafting a story and they're using language and they're ordering facts to try to create a narrative that makes sense, but also which might fit the corporate narrative or the corporate viewpoint, the editorial opinion. You have to know your news sources. And then there are sites and tools like, what is it called? Ground News, which keeps track of political leanings or purports to. But what if just the facts, is that even possible? What if just the facts were made available and you had your own personal news buddy, an agent, a piece of software? Now, I'm not saying you would have to write that, but you would select a tool that seems to do what you want it to do, and it could go collect the facts from different news sites and different news sources and data sources, and it can compose a narrative for you that says, here's what's going on in language that you want, and I mean English or Chinese or French or German or anything, right? The language that you want to have your news delivered to you in, using a vocabulary that fits your needs, and presenting items in order that makes sense to you and in priorities that make sense to you. I don't mean within a story, but I mean overall, you could have a personalized news report that you are actually generating, or a tool that you have some control over. Now, of course, this is another place where shenanigans could take place. The Republican news agent is not going to go and get any of those Democrat facts. It'll only get the... Anyway, the point is there are far better ways and the technology to actually implement them, that we have those, that you could actually create a dashboard or some way of enabling people to consume the state of affairs of the systems that they rely on, so that they are not hit in the face, so to speak, or they are not disappointed because they only hear one side of a story when they're not hearing the details, which are, oh, actually, it's not so bad. Getting a full picture that one can consume. And I don't mean just at the moment, but in the next point, we'll make this more. But like, what is happening, not what happened today, but what is happening and what seems to be happening into the future. I foresee the end user having a lot more control over that. Over which pieces of information their agent retrieves and presents to them, and how, and so on. I can see a time not too far in the future where your news picture could literally be a picture, right? You could have a visualization constructed for you that you have control over. You're not hoping or wishing that I wish my local news site would use more maps and timelines and charts. No, give me the data, and you can parse English language now. Obviously, that's what large language models are doing. Okay, parse the article and draw me a picture. You can do that today. Connection and analysis are key, like drawing those pictures. Presenting daily information as an update is interesting. That's what happens today. You'll get the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and the inverted pyramid structure of a classic print newspaper article. Maybe there's some video, maybe there's some audio, maybe there's a chart or a graph or an illustration of some sort. Great. And then it'll follow up with like, oh, and here's what was happening last time, yesterday, the week before, etc. Especially how all this, presenting a daily information update is interesting. Presenting context, the big picture, the cause and effect, especially how all of this will impact one individual like me or you, but also the town, the population, etc., is essential and is the missing piece today. In fact, that's the thing that I think needs the most attention, regardless of whether it's political or what. It's generally understanding what is happening today in the context of what has been happening and what could happen and why. These are actually essential. Vibe voting may even give permission to cast ignorant votes with the I didn't know what I was voting for, letting some off the hook. But guess what? Your vote matters to other people, unfortunately. We're all in this lifeboat together, as they say. The full scope and grandeur of campaign planks and beautiful bills and sweeping decisions at government levels, all government levels, need to be transparent and observable, and every single person should be able to either consume or generate for themselves a report, a visualization, a picture that makes sense to them so that they may make sense of the world. Here too, we have the technology, but will people notice? And that's all I have to say about that for the moment. Tell me what you think. If you want to be a guest on the FFS Talk audio program, I need to set up some sort of hey, I want to be a guest, a link or something, but I also need to have the FFS Talk website published. You would not believe my to-do list, and it's never going to be shorter than it is today. But you can reach out at any time, media@ffstalk.com. It has always been the address. It's available in the RSS feed. It's available in the profile pages for wherever you found this, wherever you find your podcasts. So yeah, you can always email media at ffstalk.com. Tell me what you want to talk about. Let's set that up. In the meantime, who's working on this idea? I think personal news summarizers and a economy of facts and data, which we already kind of have. Open data is a thing, and certainly you can derive facts from textual reporting and even video transcripts and so on. So yeah, this should be possible. This is probably a startup that I've just described. On that note, I will thank you for listening as always. We'll catch you next week. In the meantime, hopefully my voice was okay. I am getting over a weird cold that I had on Saturday. Today's Thursday, so not so long ago. Fever, the rest of the NyQuil symptoms and whatnot. Nothing too major. And now I'm trying to get all that stuff coughed up and out. I'll leave you with that visualization. Thank you for listening as always. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.